I've got a mini grocery haul to share with you, and then we're going to talk about meal planning. We are kicking it old school today. I've got moms asking how are they going to feed all these kids? Well, I've got a few answers for you. Keep watching. If we're just meeting, I'm Denise Jordan, and I teach traditional homemaking for today's woman. So if you want to learn more about making and keeping a home, hit that subscribe button and double tap that little bell icon so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Okay, let's get into it. I tell you what, with all of these kids home from school, one of the things that moms are being forced to do is cook and cook and cook some more. And they're trying to figure out, what are we going to feed them? They're eating us out of house and home. Well, back in the day, when I was a little girl, granted it was many moons ago, our parents figured out how to feed us. And if you think about it, back in the day, people didn't consume as much meat then as they do now. So I will show you how you can use what you have to prepare nutritious and filling meals for your family. And we will start with a few of the things that I picked up today. First of all, I picked up some ground chuck. I got a 1 pound pack and a 2 pound pack. Now I will divide this pack in half so that I have 3 individual sections of ground chuck. But what can you make with ground chuck? Well, you can make a meatloaf. You can make meatballs and spaghetti. You can make spaghettis and meat sauce. You can make chili. You can make vegetable beef soup. So there's lots you can do with ground chuck, and it can be very filling. So I picked up ground chuck so I can make some things like that. Over here I've got a chicken, and I picked up a whole chicken this time. For the number one, a whole chicken is a little bit cheaper than buying the chicken parts. And we'll talk about what we can do with that in just a little bit, but I picked up a whole chicken. I also picked up some cream of chicken soup, and I really like to have this on hand because this is what my husband calls those cooking soups, but I use these a lot when I'm cooking various things. And if someone is ill, you can also serve this to them. I picked up 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup. Again, I use that in cooking. And then I wanted some tomato soup. I tried to get some the other day and there was none. So I picked up 4 cans today of Campbell's tomato soup. And then I also picked up this organic tomato soup in the carton. I couldn't find that. And so I thought, well, I better go ahead and get a couple cans of this. And then when I found the cans, they weren't where they should have been. I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and keep those. So I've got tomato soup. Now here's the thing about the tomato soup. I couldn't find tomato sauce, diced tomatoes, or anything like that in the store the other day, but I did have a can of tomato soup. So when I made some vegetable soup the other day, I used a can of tomato soup in it because I didn't have any tomato sauce. So you can use this for cooking as well as eating. And I was out of petite diced tomatoes, and I did look for those when I was at the grocery store the other day. Couldn't find any. So I found some this morning, and I picked up 4 cans of petite diced tomatoes. Now there's no salt added, but I can add my own salt, so these are fine. And I've got some noodles, and these are the Klusky noodles, and these are the very thin noodles that you would tend to see in chicken noodle soup or beef noodle soup. So I got a couple of bags of those because I do plan on making some chicken noodle soup and possibly beef noodle soup. And then a bag of these wide Essen House noodles. I like these when I'm making chicken and noodles or beef and noodles as a dinner as opposed to soup. So I got some of that. The other thing that I picked up was this package of toilet tissue, and they had a small amount in the store, and they were limiting customers to 1 package, so I just picked up 1 package of that. And then I have this 5 pound bag of cornmeal. Now here's the thing about this. There was no Jiffy corn muffin mix in the store, and there was a gentleman there looking for that, and he couldn't find any, and he had been to a couple other stores, and they were out. And I said, well, they've got this cornmeal here. You should pick up one of those, because his wife had sent him to the store. I said, trust me, your wife will want you to get that, because whatever you're going to do with that Jiffy mix, she can make with this cornmeal mix. Well, I don't think he picked it up. But I picked up one because I can make cornbread, corn muffins, and other things with this cornmeal. So I picked that up. And then just a frivolous, I picked up a box of these Krispy Kreme donuts. My husband enjoys these in the morning with breakfast. I've got some meatballs that I have that I always like to get. And then, of course, a loaf of bread. And bread is one of those fresh things you almost always have to have. So these are the things that I picked. Oh, yeah. And then I have a bag of cornbread stuffing mix. This is the Pepperidge Farm Classic Cornbread Stuffing Mix. And I laid out here a bag of rice that I picked up from a previous grocery shopping adventure, and I just wanted to have it out here to talk about a couple of things. So these are the things that I picked up today. Now let's talk about meal planning. If you are a family of 4, this one chicken can serve you 2 meals. So moms, when you cook the chicken, you can cook the whole chicken when you cook it, and then cut it in half, put half away in the fridge for Wednesday, and maybe you have the first half on Sunday or Monday. And when you have the first half of the chicken, you can make it with mashed potatoes and gravy, and then serve some vegetables on the side. You could make baked sweet potato or something like that with that chicken. But you've got the chicken, you've got veggies on the side, maybe you have a little salad, something like that. The other half of the chicken, you are going to make either chicken and noodles or chicken noodle soup, or maybe a chicken pot pie, some kind of a chicken casserole. But you're going to make that chicken work for 2 meals. If you're a family of 6, let's say you've got 3 or 4 children, and then you've got the adults, you're going to need that whole chicken for 1 meal. But so you would cut the chicken into 9 pieces, 2 wings, 2 legs, 2 thighs, and then cut the breast in half. So you've got 8 pieces, and then you have the back. So I would set the back aside and use that at another day to use it for seasoning, for soup, or something like that. Or take the back and maybe one of the thighs and set that aside, and then eat the other parts for that particular meal. And then with the part that you set aside, you can make chicken noodle soup with that. You could do roast chicken with root vegetables. What are root vegetables? Carrots, potatoes, parsnips, those kinds of things. Roast the veggies, roast the chicken, and you're good to go. And like I said, take that other half of the chicken and use it for another meal. So there's that. You could also use this stuffing mix to make some dressing. Make a pan of cornbread and then use this, make some dressing. And I do have a video on how to do baked chicken and dressing. I will link that below so that you can check that out. But you could do baked chicken and dressing for a Sunday dinner. Serve it with some cranberry sauce or some other kind of green veggies, carrots, sweet potatoes, whatever you want to serve it with, and have a really good meal there. And then you could either have leftovers or use the other half of the chicken for something else. So that's what you're going to do with this. At least that's an option. And then with the ground chuck, you can make spaghetti and meat sauce, or make meatballs. Pick up one of those jars of pasta sauce and get your spaghetti out, and then you've got a dish right there. Serve it with a salad or some frozen or canned vegetables, and then you're good to go. Or you can make hamburger vegetable soup. I've got a wonderful hamburger vegetable soup recipe. I'll link it below, but it's very hearty. You make it with potatoes and carrots and celery, that kind of thing. So speaking of potatoes, I didn't pick up potatoes today, but I do have potatoes. So you want to make sure you've got plenty of potatoes. So when you make your shopping trip, you want to check the produce section and look for potatoes. Either sweet potatoes or regular old Idaho white potatoes, because you can do so much with those. You can use this potatoes for mashed potatoes, potatoes in soup, potatoes that are quartered with salt and butter, roasted potatoes, baked potatoes. So there's all kinds of things you can do with the potatoes. So you can do the chicken and then have maybe baked potato with that, with a little bit of sour cream or gravy, that kind of thing on top of it. Keeping in mind that if things really get tight and you're just trying to put together quick meals that are filling but also nutritious, they don't have to have as much meat as they're used to. So small amounts can work. And then the cream of chicken soup, I usually use that when I'm making chicken and noodles or chicken stew, because I use that as kind of the filler, kind of helps make the sauce that goes in the chicken stew, the chicken and noodles, or a chicken pot pie. So you need those for that. So when you make your shopping trip, if you can find this, pick up at least 4 cans. So there are quite a few things you can do with the chicken. As far as the ground beef, again, you can make the hamburger vegetable soup, or you can make spaghetti, or you can make a meatloaf. Meatloaf is great if you had a combination of 1 pound ground beef, 1 pound of ground pork, or use 2 pounds of ground beef and some other things. I do have a video on how to make a meatloaf. I will link it below so that you can check that out. You can have meatloaf for dinner, and then you can give the kids meatloaf sandwiches for lunch. Meatloaf sandwiches are amazing. I like to make mine with, I will toast the bread, spread it with a little mayo, slice the meatloaf kind of thin, match it up with a fork, and then spread it on top of the mayo, put the other slice of bread on top of it, cut it in half, and you're good to go. Or, one of the things that we are good for here in Indiana, and it is so Hoosier, we will take gravy and pour it over the top of the bread and the meatloaf, that kind of thing, and you can eat it with a knife and fork. Very good, very hearty, and your children will love it. So meatloaf one day and meatloaf sandwiches another day for lunch. So there's that. And then the other thing, I do have in my freezer a pot roast. So what can you do with that? Well, I make the pot roast for maybe Sunday or Monday dinner. Put it in with some onions, with potatoes, carrots, and celery. Let it cook, and I'll probably put it in my crock pot once it's been browned. And then we'll have pot roast for dinner on Sunday or Monday. And then on Wednesday or Thursday, I'm going to make either vegetable beef soup or beef and noodles, or maybe even a beef pot pie with the leftover pot roast. So when you make that pot roast for that first dinner, either cut it in half depending upon the size, or cut 1/3 off of it. Set that 1/3 aside for the second meal that you plan to make. Or you can use rice. So when you make that pot roast with the potatoes and the carrots and the onions and a little bit of gravy and you have it, you can also serve a little bit of rice on the side, or make some beef soup with rice in it instead of potatoes, that kind of thing. Or have the beef slices another day, the pot roast another day with gravy, and serve it with rice on the side. So that's something else you can do. And then also I forgot to mention chicken and rice soup. Meatballs, you can make Swedish meatballs, and you can serve them with noodles. So I've got the noodles here that you can serve them with. You can make your own sauce. If you don't have a can of the sweet and sour sauce that you purchase in the store, just Google it and you can find how you can put together that sauce. But Swedish meatballs, or spaghetti and meatballs, or barbecued meatballs, and then have them with potatoes or corn on the cob, other things like that. Another thing to consider is a pork roast. I've got a pork roast in the freezer. So you could do a pork roast for one dinner, put it in the crock pot or roast it, and then when you serve it for dinner one day with some maybe baked sweet potatoes or candied sweet potatoes and other veggies, then on another day you would take that leftover pork roast, shred it up, and serve pulled pork sandwiches. So that's a way that you can have one meal that turns into two. And then the other thing that I've got in the freezer, and I would encourage you to pick one of these up if you're able to get to the store, is at Kroger. They have a section where they have like turkey breast or the rotisserie chickens that they sell, that once they can't sell them fresh anymore, they'll freeze them and put them over in the dairy case, not in the dairy case, but they'll put them over in a refrigerated case. Pick up a couple of those, and you can use those and do turkey and dressing, turkey sandwiches, turkey noodle soup, turkey pot pie, and things like that. So you can make those meals go a long way. So for my young homemakers, or for my homemakers out there with kids, and you're trying to figure out what you're going to feed all of these children at lunch and dinner time, these are just a few suggestions that I have for you. I just thought it would be helpful to share with you some of the things that my mom used to do when we were kids, and then some of the things that I used to do when I had a young family here at home. Now, I grabbed a couple cans of chunk-like tuna out of my pantry because I wanted you to see what are some of the things that you might typically have in your pantry that you can use. So I can make tuna casserole with this tuna and these noodles and this can of cream of mushroom soup, or I could use the cream of chicken. So right here I've got all the makings for tuna casserole. Tuna casserole is great for dinner or lunch. The other option is tuna salad sandwiches. Whip it up with a little bit of mayo or salad dressing, and you can make it as hearty as you like. Maybe boil a couple of eggs, put that in the tuna salad to stretch it a little bit, and then make tuna salad sandwiches with the bread that we picked up today. So tuna salad sandwiches and tomato soup for lunch. And speaking of tomato soup, one of the things that I forgot, the all-time favorite comfort food, grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. That is a perfect pairing. So you can make grilled cheese sandwiches and give your kids tomato soup for lunch on one day. And then on another day, you could do like a meatless meal and then make mac and cheese for dinner and have a salad or some other things to go along with that. And then I also had picked up on a different grocery haul this chunk chicken breast. So it's just chicken in the can, kind of like tuna in the can, only it's chicken. And you can make chicken salad sandwiches or chicken pot pie or other chicken dishes with it, or even chicken salad. So have lots of salad and then you put the chunk chicken in it, that kind of thing. So there are those. And one of the things I forgot to mention was these tomatoes. You need tomatoes to make so many things, and that's why they were out when I went looking for them the first couple of times. If you're making vegetable beef soup, you need tomatoes. If you're making beef stew, you need tomatoes. If you're making so many dishes, tomatoes are an important part of that meal. So make sure you pick up some tomatoes. And I like the petite diced tomatoes. I think you get more tomatoes in the can, and I just like the way they feel or the way they are in the dishes. So make sure you get some of those. So I've given you quite a few options for meals that you can make for your family with the things that I picked up today, but also think about this. What's on your inventory? What do you have in your fridge, your freezer, and your pantry that you could pull out and throw together some meals? I'm sure there's quite a bit there that you can use. You just have to be a little bit more creative because we're forced to be creative right now. So one of the things you might need to do is actually inventory your freezer, your fridge, and your pantry to see what's in there, and then make a shopping list based upon that inventory, and then go shopping based upon what you need to pick up. I've got an inventory bundle. It's an inventory sheet for your fridge, your freezer, and your pantry. It's a worksheet that you can fill out what you've got, and then there is a shopping list and a meal plan that works together. So I've got a bundle of 5 printables that you're welcome to have. If you're interested in that, just send me an email and I'll just shoot it right out to you. And if you're interested in learning more about how to do that inventory, I also have a video where I showed how I actually used the worksheets when I inventoried my freezer. I'll link that below as well so that you can check that out. And then I will also link the video where I made the chicken and noodles, the hamburger vegetable soup, things like that, things that you can make pretty quickly that will work well for your family. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and share it with family and friends that you think can benefit from this information. And just so you know, I've raised 3 children and I've managed a home for more than 45 years. So I have prepared a whole lot of meals from things that I have in the house. And there were some days when the grocery budget was slim and I had to figure it out. So trust me, I know what I'm talking about. So if you want to learn more about traditional homemaking for today's woman, subscribe. I would love to have you as a member of the TNT community. In the meantime, this is Denise Jordan saying goodbye. I'm going to put these groceries away and we're having chicken noodle soup for dinner. So I will see you next time.